Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of ANC 34G. We meet on the second and fourth Mondays of each month. I see some people here who don't ordinarily come to our meetings, and so I'll give you a little bit of background about the ANC. I'm Randy Speck. I'm chair of the ANC 34G. I represent a single-member district that is ANC 34G 03. That's basically the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. That for a second. We meet, as I said, every twice a month, which is unusual for commissions. We try to follow the agenda that's been passed out. I think probably everyone has seen the agenda. There's going to be, we'll talk about it in a minute, a couple of items that have changed. Before I get to the background on the meeting, I'll introduce all the commissioners. Becky, you want to begin?
Hello, everybody. I'm Rebecca Madak. I have the single-member district from Nebraska to Broad Branch, basically Nebraska, Morrison, basically Tennyson and Jags a little bit in there. But I have Lafayette Elementary School and Park in my single-member district.
Evening, I'm Chris Romaludi, Vice Chair of the Commission. I represent 3G07, which is done by military, Reno, Nebraska, and Nevada.
Hi everybody, I'm Jerry Mallett. I represent 3G05. It's basically from Chevy Chase Circle down the east side of Connecticut to about military and across to Broad Branch.
Okay, so we have 4 commissioners tonight. That constitutes a quorum, so we can conduct business. We have 3 commissioners that are missing. May show up later, we'll see. But we'll go ahead and proceed. As I said, our ANC represents 7 single-member districts, and altogether it's about 15,000 people. Each one of us represents about 2,000 people, and we're elected every 2 years, and there'll be an election again this November in the general election for ANC commissioners. We try to keep our meetings as orderly as possible. What we'd like to do is, if there are presentations, you'll come up to the microphone and make whatever announcements you have, and then commissioners have the first opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll take questions from the audience. If there are too many people who want to ask questions or make comments, then we'll ask you to stand in line over here so that we can make sure everybody gets an opportunity to speak, and it might be necessary to limit people's time if we've got too many people who want to speak on one topic. Our meetings are video recorded, and so that's another reason why we want everyone to come up and talk to the microphone so that everybody can hear. The only ones that are on the video are the ones who are speaking, either commissioners or at the podium. Those videos then are put up the next day, usually pretty early tomorrow morning, on our YouTube channel, and so they'll be available for anyone if they want to take a look. We also prepare minutes of our meetings, and those will be online on our website. We encourage you to visit our website, which has a lot of information on it that you'll find useful. We also ask that if you want to ask a question or speak, please be recognized first by the chair so that we can make sure everything is orderly and we don't have people talking over each other. We don't want multiple people talking at once. Okay, the first item we have up is adopting our agenda. As I said before, the agenda has been passed out tonight and was posted on our website and on various listservs. There's been 1 or 2 modifications. The first is that the Broad Branch Markets application for a Board of Zoning Adjustment variance is not going to be heard tonight. It's going to be heard on March 9th. BZA has not set it yet for a date for a hearing. The other thing is that we had originally thought we were going to consider filing testimony at the Oversight hearing for the Department of General Services, but we're not going to do that tonight. We decided we're not going to have any testimony on that issue. So with those 2 modifications to our agenda, all those in favor of adopting the agenda? 4-0. Okay, the first thing is, as we typically do, we have a number of announcements to make. The first item deals with an item that's on our agenda, and that is the E6 and M4 bus. And I know a lot of you are here because you're interested in those bus routes, and we want to preserve those. I think it's almost unanimous in the community that everyone wants to preserve those two bus routes. It's going to be really important to get your comments to WMATA on that. And the closing date for any comments is, I believe, March 2nd at 5 o'clock. And you can do that online. There'll be a web link that will be in our minutes where you can go and take a survey and also upload any comments that you have. There's also a hearing this Wednesday at WMATA's headquarters, which is at 605th Street Northwest. And the hearing starts at 4:30. There's an open house at 4. I encourage you to get there early because there's no sign up online. You just have to sign up if you're going to testify at that meeting in person. And so it'll be first come, first served. And they're going until 11 o'clock, I think. And so it could be a long time before you could get on. So I encourage everyone to probably, it's best to put your comments online rather than trying to get in that queue at WMATA headquarters on Wednesday. The second announcement is with regard to the budget process that begins shortly. The district released its comprehensive annual financial report on January 31st. And that covered the fiscal year that ended on September 30th, 2019. And it was really interesting because agencies underspent their budget by $75 million and revenues exceeded budgeted estimates by $492 million. So there was a lot of additional revenue that wasn't expected for last year. The mayor is now preparing the budget for fiscal year 2021, which begins on October 1st this year. And it will be released on March 19th. It's something you might want to take a look at when it becomes available. The revenue growth for the next year is expected to be at least $601 million, so a 7.4% increase over fiscal year 2020. Major way that we interact with that budget is through council hearings, because the council will hold hearings on each agency's budget, beginning on March 23rd and continue until April 9th. And in past years, the ANC has scrutinized the budget pretty carefully and identified things that we thought were important to our community, and we've testified at those budget hearings, either for the budget as the mayor has proposed it, or for modifications to the budget, which we've done on a number of occasions successfully, by the way. Okay, the next announcement is with regard to the Chevy Chase Citizens Association, which is having a happy hour and meet and greet tomorrow evening, February 25th, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Parthenon Restaurant, and everyone is invited to attend that. Another thing that's coming up soon is the U.S. Census, and you would think that in our neighborhood we get a very strong response and everybody gets counted, but in the 2010 census, the last census that was conducted, there was a fairly substantial number of people who did not respond to the initial postcards that were sent out. And it was between 8 and 20% in our neighborhood who did not respond. It's very important that everyone gets counted, and that process is going to begin in March, when the Census Bureau will send out postcards to everyone and ask you to fill out the census form online. This is the first time they've really done primarily online. And be careful not to throw that away as junk mail. It really is important. So please look out for that sometime in March. Census Day is April 1st. I think that's when they really kick off the census for 2020. And there will be additional information that the ANC will provide, as well as the Census Bureau's website, which is dccensus2020.dc.gov. And the final announcement I have is with regard to the DC Murals program. this is little known, but there are free murals that are available that artists will come out and prepare a mural on a vacant wall, mostly for businesses. But the importance of these murals was emphasized in our neighborhood recently when Circle Liquors closed, taken over by Chase Bank. And they immediately took down the murals that we all had loved and admired of Griffith Stadium. And so we lost that. And so I think it's very important to have these murals available, and there's a website for Murals DC Project where applications are being taken now to have murals in our neighborhood. Okay, that's all I've got. Becky, you have any announcements? Chris?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the importance of the census. How much money the district gets, how much money our neighborhood gets, depends on the census count. How many people they think live here. If only half the people here fill out the census, we're going to get half as much money or representation. So it's very important that you all fill that out.
Okay.
No additional ones.
Okay, community announcements. Jessica, you here? I don't see Jessica. Well, she left me one announcement that I can make in her stead. Jessica is from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, and she wanted us to announce tonight that on Wednesday, ahead of WMATA's budget hearing, Mayor Bowser will host a rally to support the region's workers and the ongoing push to keep Metro open. I think what they want to do is keep Metro open later hours for workers who work those later hours. I then relayed to Jessica today our strong interest in having the mayor's support for continuation of the E6 bus. And in 2011, when she was a council member, she did support our E6 bus and was very strong in that support. So we hope that she'll do the same thing again this year. Okay, Dee, I saw you from Councilmember Che's office.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dee Smith from Councilmember Che's office, and I will make my announcements pretty quick. I'm just going to tag on to a few things that Councilmember Speck already, Commissioner Speck, yeah, I gave you a promotion, already mentioned. I do want to emphasize that at the WMATA hearing, Councilmember Che will be in person to testify, and her specific testimony is about the bus service the various bus services that affect our ward, to include the E2, the 30 buses, and a few other buses that the D2 and the D3. So she will be in person at WMATA testifying. Also, I would like to add that for the Chevy Chase Citizens Association meet and greet, Councilmember Che will be present. So I urge you guys, if you have not had an opportunity to talk to her, please come and meet her. If you know her, come and meet her again. If you have anything that you want to talk to her about in person, please take the opportunity to meet with her tomorrow. And just two more performance hearings, because we are wrapping those up. But I wanted to make sure that you guys know that this Thursday, starting at 11 a.m. in room 120, our committee for transportation and the environment will host the performance hearing for DC Water and the Washington Aqueduct. So if you have any concerns or things that you'd like to testify about as it relates to either one of those two agencies, please don't miss this opportunity. And then also on Thursday, March the 5th, the Committee of the Whole will be having their performance and oversight hearing. And the two entities that may be of interest to you guys there is UDC and the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. And that hearing starts at 11, and that's in room 500. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dee. Jessica, I stole your thunder. Do you have anything else you'd like to announce?
I'm Jessica Green. I'm Mayor Bowser's Ward 3 liaison. In addition to the announcement about Mayor Bowser doing the rally at WMATA headquarters, just wrapped up the 3 budget engagement forums with Mayor Bowser. But it's not too late to have your priorities and concerns heard. You can enter them at budget.dc.gov. Again, that's budget.dc.gov, and there's opportunities to fill in, rate your priorities and enter any ideas that you might have. If you have any other community questions or concerns, please come speak with me. I'm glad to see how we can work together to work towards a resolution. All right.
Thanks, Jessica. Sam Stevens, Sam, are you here? Anyone from Councilmember Todd's office then? No? Okay, I know we have someone from Councilmember Robert White's office to represent him today.
Hello, my name is Kirti Suri. I am Legislative Counsel on Councilmember Robert White's Committee on Facilities and Procurement. We have oversight over the Office of ANCs as well as the Department of General Services, the Office of Contracting and Procurement, WMATA, and the Office on Returning Citizens Affairs. So we have been making an effort to make it out to all ANC meetings throughout this year, throughout the district. We are your at-large, one of your at-large representatives. So in addition to whether you live in Ward 3, Mary Chay's office, or whether you live in Ward 4, Councilmember Todd's office, we are also at your service should you need anything at all. I wanted to just introduce myself, introduce what our committee has oversight over, and let you know that we're in the process of wrapping up our performance oversight process. We just had a performance oversight hearing last week with WMATA, the Office of Contracting and Procurement the week before that, as well as our other a couple other offices prior to that. Our last hearing is this Thursday with the Department of General Services at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you have any interest or have any concerns with that agency, please do come to the hearing or submit written testimony to us via email at facilities@dccouncil.us. I also want to reemphasize the importance of completing the survey for the WMATA budget. We understand the concerns about the bus route cuts. Councilmember Robert White wrote a letter to WMATA that all council members signed on to. We submitted that as part of the council's written testimony to WMATA just last week. So that will be part of your written record. We're in constant communication with our DDOT partners as well as our partners on the board, Ms. Stephanie Giddigbee. So, if you do have any additional concerns, we understand the concern about the E6 bus. Please do communicate that to our office so we can pass that information along to our partners on the board. We do take your concerns very seriously. And then I'll be around if anyone would like to speak to me privately. I can step down the hall. Otherwise, I'll stay until the end of the meeting if anyone wants to catch up with me then.
Okay, thank you. You have a question?
Was the letter in support of keeping the buses the way they were?
The letter was asking for them to keep the buses as they are and listen to community input and try to ensure that they're engaging with the community's needs and making sure that decisions about bus routes are taken into consideration. For example, we heard the testimony last week about the E6 bus falling on the Knollwood community, falling on that route and their loss of access and those kinds of concerns, schools on the bus routes and things like that, are not taken necessarily into consideration into more calculated measurements.
Thank you. Yeah, I was at that hearing with WMATA before your committee, Robert White's committee, and he asked some very good questions. He certainly was listening very carefully about the E6 bus. There were people from Knollwood who were testifying there as well. One person representing Lafayette Elementary School was there too. So, I mean, he certainly heard from us that the importance of the E6 bus.
Yes, and WMATA is specifically under my portfolio in the committee, and so again, if you have any other concerns I'd like to share with you, please do let me know. after the meeting, and I'll take note of those as we go into this budget process with WMATA and continue to communicate with our partners there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have announcements they'd like to make? Did you have a question, sir?
I just had a question from the standpoint of procedure. Who has jurisdiction over this issue? Is it Robert White's committee, or is it the Transportation Committee?
It's the council oversees, each committee has an assigned agency, and WMATA is under the Facilities and Procurement Committee. So it's Robert White's committee that oversees WMATA. However, the budget for WMATA is not approved by the council. It is approved by WMATA's board. And there are 3 members of the board who are representatives of the District of Columbia. But the board as a whole approves the budget. We'll be talking a lot more about that when we get to the first substantive issue in our agenda.
And if I could respond
Sure.
a little bit. Well, the Committee on Facilities and Procurement has oversight over WMATA, which means that we will do performance oversight checks on them throughout the year, as we did last week. We also have close communication with our partners at WMATA and with our board members, who the council appointed. Most recently, Stephanie Gaedeke was appointed by the council to the board. So while the council does not specifically approve WMATA's budget in the way that we do for our own agencies, we do have representation on the board for the district, and our role in this process is ensuring that our board members are representing our residents to the best of their ability as they negotiate the budget with WMATA, as well as with the other jurisdictions in Maryland and Virginia, because it is a tri-jurisdictional agency, and so all of their interests are taken into account when formulating the budget for WMATA. Stephanie is a great board member. She's very interested in district's concerns, and I know she will work her best to ensure that our interests are represented in the final budget. What is going to be most important is for everyone to fill out that survey at wmata.com/budget, because the more representation that is received by WMATA through that budget, the more input they receive, the better it will play into the final budget that is presented to the board by WMATA's team for their final vote. So it is really important for every individual to complete that survey so that they have as much feedback as possible from our residents. And to the extent that Councilmember Mary Chase, she sits on our committee, so if you wanted to communicate through us, through her office, that either way is fine.
Okay. Any other announcements anyone wants to make? If not, we'll get right into E6 and M4 bus routes, which I know a lot of you are here for. Just let me give a little bit of background, first of all. We were a bit disappointed that WMATA did not come out to the community to talk to us about their budget proposal. They had originally told us that they would come to one of our meetings, and we had them scheduled for this meeting to come to the meeting, but then they decided that they were getting too many requests from too many ANCs, and they didn't have the staff to do it, and so they held one meeting for all ANC commissioners. It was called it was an ANC forum, they said, on September 11th, on February 11th, excuse me. And I went to that meeting. It was not very informative, really. It was just basically going over the things that were in the budget. It was productive, however, because I talked to a number of the WMATA staff, and I was able to communicate to them how concerned we are about keeping the E6 bus, how this is really a major transportation route for a lot of people in the community. Also, one of the DC representatives on the board, Jeff Marushian, who is the director of DDOT, was there at that meeting too, and so I talked with Jeff a bit as well, and emphasized to him how important the E6 bus is to our community. And we also, as I indicated just a minute ago, we gave testimony at the oversight hearing for the Facilities and Procurement Committee, and Councilmember White, as I said, was very interested at that point, asked a lot of questions as well. And the general manager for WMATA was at that hearing as well, Paul Wiedefeld, and I had 2 or 3 minutes to talk to him directly, and where I emphasized as well the issues that are of concern to us, both the E6 bus and what WMATA is doing with the bus terminal across the street from us. So we've had a lot of opportunities for input. The next step in this process, though, is, as I said in the announcements section, is to have this hearing that's on Wednesday, and for the ANC to submit formal comments to WMATA, so that they will have those as part of their decision-making process in deciding what to do with the E6 bus and the M4 bus. There were a number of ANCs who were quite upset that they got such late notice about these changes that they really didn't have an opportunity to pass a resolution. Well, we're going to pass a resolution tonight and get that to WMATA so that they know officially what our position is. As I think probably all of you know, the proposal that has been made is to combine the E6 and M4 bus lines. It would basically mean an extension of the M4 up Western, down Oregon, and back on Chestnut, where the E6 currently goes, also stopping at Knollwood. But it would be an extension of the M4, but it would eliminate all of the places that the E6 goes to. And that's the real problem, I think. The M4 doesn't go where a lot of people who take the E6 bus want to go. And so that's the thing we've been emphasizing to WMATA. And again, this is not a new issue. Almost the same proposal was made in 2011, and people reacted exactly the way they are now. Everybody opposed it. And we had the opposition as well, included Councilmember Che and then Councilmember Bowser, who were both very adamantly opposed to making that change. And as a result, WMATA backed off and did not make the change. There have been some other efforts in the intervening 8 or 9 years when they have tried to make other changes in the bus, and they've also been defeated because there was so much opposition to it. So again, we need to make sure they hear our opposition this time as well. And so what we've prepared is a resolution that covers all of those issues that we raised in our testimony and the rationale for why we think it is inappropriate to be making these changes in the E6 and the M4. Let me just emphasize the M4s for just a second too, because what they're doing there, they would eliminate all of the current stops on the M4 where it goes down 30th Place and then down Military Road. And the reason that that's significant is at that intersection, 30th Place and Military Road, is the bus stop for the seniors who reside at Ingleside. It's also the bus stop for Temple Sinai, which is across the street. They have a nursery school there. Some of their teachers ride the M4 bus. They sometimes take their nursery school kids on field trips on the M4 bus. Now everybody will have to walk down to Nebraska if they're going to take the bus that they're accustomed to taking, the M4. So we're also opposing that change as well, because it will take out the convenience for a lot of people and make it more difficult, particularly for seniors and for children. So those are the things that we're considering there. Now, the one other point that I mentioned a little earlier, but that's significant as well, is this bus terminal across the street. We have been for at least the last 6 years, the ANC has been asking them, along with Chevy Chase Citizens Association and many others, to do something with that space other than just a bus turnout. Right now, it's not even being used now as a rest stop for drivers because it's completely closed. It has been closed for 2 years or more, right? Maybe much more than that. But it's been closed for a long time. And it's really a prime spot. And we ought to be using it for something else, to get businesses there, perhaps even building housing above that space. We can still, I think, preserve the historic nature of that building, but there are other things that can be done with that space as well. It shouldn't just be limited to use by WMATA. So we've been talking with them about that for a long time. And that is also a part of our comments that we're making, because they have in their capital budget the funds for that turnout. And we think that if they're going to be spending money on that, they need to be thinking about using it for other purposes as well. So that's the nature of the resolution that we have. And again, it's very similar to the testimony that we gave before the council at the oversight hearing last week. And so we're going to talk about that tonight, and we want to hear from you. First of all, ask whether the commissioners have any comments or questions, anything they want to add. Jerry?
I'll just add one thing. In addition to the comments that you mentioned, the bus turnaround was also mentioned in the resolution that we passed about the comprehensive plan amendments.
Yes. Yeah, all of these things really interrelate with the comprehensive plan, as you might expect, because there are elements in the comprehensive plan about transportation. And one of the things that they've emphasized is the need to have transportation available, particularly for seniors. And now this would be taking that away, something that we rely on, and making it more difficult for seniors and for students to get where they need to go. So that's an important element as well. Okay, who would like to make comments about the E6 bus? If you could raise your hand. Oh, I like these over here. Okay, if you could just come up to and line up over here if you want to make comments. Come right ahead.
Can everybody queue up, please?
Yeah,
Go
just
faster.
line up over here if you'd like to speak. Sir, if you'd like to speak, you can wait. You don't need to stand up all the time. Okay. All right, let's start with the most important witnesses here.
Norm Nickel from 6101 Western Avenue in Washington. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for the Commission putting this issue on the agenda. We appreciate the support of the Commission. We understand that it's a really hard, difficult thing, and it's difficult to stay on top of. We appreciate the support. It's very meaningful. Would also like to say that, on a personal note, we moved here from Boston about 5 years ago. Part of the reason why, a significant part of the reason why we moved here was because of the accessibility of the bus line, especially including the E6. For about 3.5 years, my son Calvin actually used the E6 to go to school. Isn't that right, Calvin?
Yeah.
And so he still uses it from time to time, and currently my daughter actually frequently uses it to go to school. Isn't that right? It's very meaningful to her. None of the current proposed changes of having the M4 altered a bit actually helps. As a matter of fact, what I think all of you already know is that the current proposal takes a pretty wide swath of the neighborhood, and it takes them out of accessibility, any reasonable accessibility to the public transportation. And so we're really concerned about that. I'd like to mention, if there's anything in addition to what you said that we can do, we're certainly willing and able to do it, anything that we can do. If there's certain people that we should be writing comments to, we're happy to do that, right guys?
Yeah.
And I'd also like to say I appreciate the folks who are from elected officials here. It's meaningful, and certainly what we would ask is that when you go back and you speak to your elected officials, you mention that people are here and they care about this. This is very important. So thank you very much for putting this on the agenda, and we appreciate the ability to express ourselves.
Kids have anything they want to say?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to know the E6. So, as you probably know, I'm a student at National Cathedral School, and
For the last 2 years, I have been on the E6. It has been very convenient for us. We have gotten up at about 6:30 every day to get on it. Sometimes they're late, sometimes they're early.
It's usually on time.
Yeah, that's one of the things about the E6, is it runs on time more frequently than most other bus routes because it doesn't go through a lot of congested traffic. And so even at rush hour, the E6 usually runs on time. And the M4 does not because it has to stop at traffic on Nebraska and Connecticut frequently. And so it takes it a lot longer. So sometimes it's not on time.
And being on time is really important for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calvin, do you want to say anything?
As you know, the E6 is my favorite bus, and I have been on it for 2 years, like my sister, but I have never taken it since today. I'm not going to again because my school doesn't have to do with the E6, so I can't do anything on it because it's closing, and so.
But you don't want it to close, right?
Yeah, I don't want it to close.
Thanks, Calvin. Let me just ask one other question, too. What WMATA has been telling us is, oh, well, you can just transfer. You can just get on another bus. You can take 2 buses instead of 1. Does that work for you guys?
Not always.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes we do.
Yeah?
But it really depends where we're going.
Yeah?
Sometimes we take 2. Sometimes we have our mom drive us to the bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, right now, only the E6 is an option to us.
Right.
So without the E6, we're not near the M4.
Right.
Where it's not practical for us to walk down and take the E4. It's just not practical. So we would be shut out.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out to the meeting.
That is a hard act to follow. Okay, so I live on Aberfoyle, and I have a 3-year-old and a 16-month-old. My son attends All Saints Preschool, and my caretaker will take my son to preschool and home frequently. He goes 5 days a week. Starting in August, my 16-month-old, who will be closer to 2 then, will also attend school 3 days a week at All Saints Preschool. The M4 would be a much longer walk for my caretaker and my small children. That's especially problematic with there's bad weather. They can walk, but they're small people and they have strollers, but it's cumbersome. In addition, I'm a teacher at Blessed Sacrament School, so that is a nice option for me to be able to take the bus. My caretaker for my children also goes to the Friendship Heights Metro Station. The new proposed route would not stop at all at the Friendship Heights Metro Station, so that would impact her own lifestyle choices, and Ubers are expensive, so that is a nice option for her. In addition to that, my son, I applied to Lafayette for PP4, and I'm hoping he gets in next year, and if that's an option, and he does get in, then my caretaker would be able to go to both Lafayette and All Saints on the same route. Now, she's not an American citizen, she's an au pair from Brazil, so she's nervous to take the driver's test, and financially having another 3rd car doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I'm trying to think of any other reasons. Sorry. Okay.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Michael Katzman, I live on Barnaby Street. We've all been here before. We've at least twice since I've been living here the last 15 years, gone through this process with WMATA, with the ANC to preserve the E6. Yes, where I am, I could take the M4 as long as I wanted to go to Kensington, but if I want to go to Friendship Heights, I've got to walk there, which at the moment, fortunately, I can, but a few years that might not be possible. I think what we learned the last time, the efforts of the ANC and the community to make our point of WMATA and noise, we managed to preserve the E6. There were other bus routes I remember at the time, the one on Yuma Street, where people didn't talk up, and that was the first thing that went. So I think it's critically important that we go online, we fill out the survey, we go to the meetings, we encourage Mayor Bowser and the council members to forcefully make our case, because the more noise we make, the better our chance of preserving the E6. And as the point we made the last time was that transportation system is not just the routes that make the money. I mean, if we just preserve the routes that are making the money, we would have had commercial bus lines taking those over. We don't need a comprehensive. If you don't need a comprehensive transportation system, then you open up to the private sector. But we're talking about a livable community, and that means some routes that are going to make profit and others that have to be subsidised. The E6 is just one of those small routes that will have to be subsidised. And I saw on the WMATA page the subsidy is about 190, well, depending on what if you look online, it's 90,000. I think the poster they put up at the E6 bus stop is 196,000. But per day, that's still a couple of $100 for 10,000 odd people on that area that serves Maryland as well as the district. I seem to remember the last time there was a question about, because it's a line that's only in the district, then the district pays a higher subsidy or pays this subsidy to WMATA. So it's critical for our council members and the mayor to show strong support for keeping the E6.
Thank you. Just one point about subsidies. I was really shocked to learn that in this presentation that they gave on February 11th about all the buses in the whole region, 82% of the funds necessary for operating the bus systems region-wide come from subsidies. 82%. It only covers about 18% with fares. So everybody gets subsidized. All these routes get subsidized.
With that, I have a question for our little ones. Do you guys get the free student cards?
I do.
Do you always use it when you go on the bus, or does the bus driver not make you use it?
She uses it 90-some odd% of the time.
Okay, so the count of the students on the bus are not always accurate, is what I'm getting at.
Sometimes sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay.
Right? So, I don't know what percentage of the time that happens, but generally speaking, she uses it.
And I bet there's a lot of kids who don't, because the bus driver's not going to stop them.
Okay. I don't, because
He doesn't have a student card.
Right.
yeah, but I do use my. He also doesn't need it. But sometimes I use my Metro Pass, Metro Pass.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Gibbons. I live on Upland Terrace. And I'll be
What
brief.
was your name again?
Megan Gibbons.
Okay.
And I'll be brief because I see a lot of my fellow bus riders here, literally like I know half the people by name in this room. We've been standing up on the bus and making announcements about this for several weeks now.
Excellent.
And we also, my mom and I spent several hours over the weekend passing out these little slips of paper at Lafayette Park to have people weigh in. So I would really like to ask, one of my questions is, what more can we do? Because responding to the survey is one thing, but I think we need to do more if there's something more to do.
Well, I like the idea of telling people on the bus to make sure and take that survey and make their comments, because it's really important.
Okay. And then the other thing I'll just share is that I have been taking that bus for 10 years, and I commute out to my job at Montgomery College in Rockville. So I'm not going downtown the adjusted M4 route doesn't do me any good. I would be going backwards, potentially paying more, and then also having a longer commute. So it doesn't seem like a consolidated route at all. For me, it's a canceled bus route. And I know for some elderly people who can't drive, they can't get to their doctor's appointments, many of which are over in the Willard building or the Barlow building over in Friendship Heights. I went door to door over the weekend and on the bus route to talk to people who lived on the bus route, and several elderly people who don't regularly ride the bus because they don't work anymore were very surprised to learn that it was being canceled and were immediately upset, and I talked several of them through the survey on their computer. So
Excellent. Really appreciate that. That's good. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Christine Davis, and I want to echo what my fellow bus driver Megan said. I think that, I'm not one of the people in the Lower County community, but I do feel for them. They get rerouted to town, they need to see their doctors in Friendship Heights. But I did want to talk about sort of my sort of trepidation about the bus zone being eliminated, which is basically that, I end up working late, not past these 6 hours, but the long, the further away that I have to walk. I'm not suggesting that, Northwest DC is, particularly crime, it's actually one of the less crime, but there are kinds of opportunity, and I will say that as a single woman, it makes me nervous walking alone at a great distance at night. I just feel that, I am a target for a crime of opportunity, and the elimination of the E6 bus would cause me anxiety about my personal safety. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I think it's true eliminating bus routes in general for women, but definitely in my situation, it's something that does make me nervous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gina Robinson. I live on Worthington Street. I've been taking E6 for...
Move your mic.
Sorry, thanks. I've been taking E6 for about a year and a half. I took the M4 before that to go to American. They're both great buses, like Calvin. I prefer the E6. The M4 at rush hour between 7:30 and 8:30 is a school bus. It takes middle school students, to your point. I watch them, I used to be a middle school teacher, they don't tag in with any degree of frequency or certainty. It depends on the driver and the kid, the number of kids getting on at the same time. Also, they're crammed on the bus. It takes significantly longer to get to downtown with the number of stops, and with the fact that, as you mentioned, they're on Nebraska in traffic. There have been times when I've taken the M4 and had to get out at Connecticut because it's just sitting on Nebraska, and I am now late for work and I have to take an Uber or a Lyft, and that defeats the purpose. So the E6, I know it comes on time more frequently than others. Last week, I think it ghosted, and then when the bus came, I know there have been detours. It came in one direction for Norwood, and then came in the other direction for Norwood. I'm relatively confident that she was lost. It was half an hour, she came right back. But, it comes in about 27 minutes. That's not great, but at least it's predictable, and we can take it. The M4, again, there have been times when the number of buses go by, I can't fit on a bus for 50 middle school students, and I don't want to. They're great, 7:30 in the morning. But yeah, so please encourage the council on WMATA. E6 has its purpose, it has its riders, and I will also say my landlord is 99. The caregivers come from Friendship Heights, her doctors are in Barlow building, they take the bus on occasion. The M4 will not do her any good at all and make life significantly harder for her family and for those who are caring for her, as well as for those of us who are here.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm Thelma Mrazek, a resident at Norwood, and Randy knows this because we testified, but I thought the other members of the commission might like to know how essential we feel the bus is for Norwood. And it's not just 2 reasons: to get the residents there to this area to shop, but also to doctor's appointments at Friendship Heights. That's getting more and more important for us because they're cutting down on medical care at Walter Reed. But also our employees to get to Knollwood, and it's much faster route, better route for them to get to from Friendship Heights than to go way down to Tinley Town. So I would say more employees use the bus than residents do. But for both of us, it's very, very important. And thank you for your work in trying to keep it going the way it is.
Hello. Thank you very much for having this hearing. My name is Neil Seldman. I live at Tennyson and Western, and I use the E6 regularly, and have since we moved in many years ago. I am a senior plus years, and I'm like working, and it's very easy to get to work. I commute to Friendship Heights or take a bus downtown, so it's a pretty important thing, and we also use it not for work, go shopping and stuff. So thank you for your work, and thank you for also networking with other ANCs that are affected. That obviously is a good thing to do. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Michaela Patzer. I live in Barnaby Woods, and there isn't that much I can add to what's already been said, but I just wanted to speak up on behalf of the federal workforce. I know a number of us work for the federal government, and it's very important for us to use these things. It's how I get to work, it's how I generate an income, it's how I pay my taxes. And I think that's all important to help contribute to the subsidy for the E6 bus. So I just want to reinforce and really encourage and thank the ANC for the support for E6, of the gentleman, previous gentleman. I've also been riding the bus for many, many years, and as one of my colleagues on the bus said, taking the M4, I've tried it. Trying to do that during rush hour with a host of middle schoolers is a real challenge for those of us trying to get to the office. It's not necessarily a great way. There's nothing wrong with middle school. It's just a large number. It makes it very, very difficult to start the day. So thank you very much for supporting the E6 bus, and I'm very happy to hear that the ANC is going to endorse the E6. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Buckley. I live on Broad Branch. I've lived there for 30 years now. I've raised 3 kids. All 3 kids have used the bus over years. I use the bus now. I take it to Friendship, and then I go downtown to work. It would be, as everybody has said, much less convenient if we didn't have the E6. So I feel like I'm sort of at the opposite end of the spectrum, where I now have grandchildren that I can take the bus with. And this is part of our community. It not only serves young kids who are going to school, it serves high school kids in the area. It gives them some independence when they're not yet driving or they don't have a car to drive. And it serves our seniors as well. And I'm in that category, even though I'm working still. But I feel that it really is a community service, and there's a spectrum from young kids to senior citizens, and I think it would really do a disservice to the community as a whole to not have this service. And I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm one of my colleagues, and I've been riding the E6 bus for over 20 years. And I appreciate what you said, Mr. Chairman, about the subsidies, because up until this point, I thought it was going to be an uphill battle, because WMATA has said they were losing in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year on the E6.
They've actually revised that, and they now say it's $94,000 but they don't explain why it went from 200,000 to 94,000.
Exactly, but the point you made, 80% of the lines are subsidized. So that needs to be brought out. And again, I appreciate what you said, it was worth it to come here to hear that. Because as I said, I thought it was a big uphill. But, and then I had the chance to talk to the WMATA people a couple of years ago, and they said that as long as General Cushman was going to be riding the E6, they weren't going to touch it. But General Cushman died about a year ago, 2 years ago. And I see they're trying to merge the bus and eventually eliminate it. So I appreciate what you said about 82%. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And Michael said it earlier about the financial, but you revised the number from 200,000 to 94,000. But again, that is and we met with Brandon Todd, Councilmember Todd on Saturday. And one thing we mentioned with Brandon Todd was, it's not a good time to be talking about saving a line that's costing money. But when you realize 82% of the buses are subsidized, everybody's losing money.
Yeah.
And so it's a good deal. We hope we keep these 6.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Subhashini Bellini. I can spell that for you later if you'd like. We live at 5517 Broad Branch Road. I've been there for about 2 years, and I'm actually one of the lucky ones here. I have a few options. We live at an intersection where I could either take the E4, the E6, or run down the hill and take the M4. And I think I'm going to be reiterating some things that a lot of our neighbors have said already. One is that the M4 takes significantly longer, and that merger of the routes is probably going to result in some sort of service that nobody is going to be able to rely on if they need to get to work on time. And it's also, as you noted earlier, I think a great distance for a number of people who, especially those who have challenges with mobility. I can see that would create barriers. One thing that people may have mentioned earlier at the hearing, or I don't think I heard it today, but it may have commented on this as well. I think it's very important that there is a service that accesses a covered transportation hub. We do have very bad weather. There are people with mobility problems, people who may be waiting at late hours for the bus to arrive in the evenings, and the stop at Friendship Heights is actually a well-lighted, secure place to catch the bus in the evening, especially at the late hours that I sometimes ride it. Another concern is really that there are options now for people who have to take them or will be forced to take these other options, and that is Uber or Lyft or some other sort of ride sharing. So if WMATA wants to continue to provide service that everyone relies on, and it is cutting some essential services to communities that need it, people will find other options, and the result, I fear, will be that ridership decreases in the long term. So that's something I hope the WMATA has considered. And finally, I wanted to just point out, as somebody who has taken these different buses on different days of the week for various reasons, there is a difference. The E6 is our community bus. It is the bus on which everyone who rides really talks to one another. And so the kinds of bonds that are created by a route, that's something that I didn't think about initially until I thought about the fact that this might be eliminated. I have met so many neighbors. This is a bus in which people will talk to each other not only about what is going to be discussed at these meetings, but there are retirees who are interacting with people from different generations, and all of that is hugely valuable to me, and I think to our community as well. So thank you for the opportunities.
Thank you. I hadn't thought about that, but that's really important.
Good evening. My name is Renee Turner-Hinman, and I live at the corner of Western and 31st Street, and I've lived there since 2005. And although my children did not catch the bus to school, they utilized the bus for extracurricular activities, or if my husband and I wasn't able to pick them up by 7 or 7 o'clock, they were able to catch the bus home. So I think it's really, really important to keep the bus. 2 years ago,
it was my only way to get to work. So I think that's important. Right there on my block, there are two young adults that are challenged. And for them to go out to the community to work, they have to take the bus. The kids are growing up, but we catch the bus with 6 kids that live in the neighborhood that are going to Deal and now Wilson. And in the past 6 months, we've had 2 new families move on our block that have 4 children between the 2 families. So at some point, they will be taking the bus. And I think it's also important to recognize that it's the only way out of the community if you're not driving. So it's really important to keep these things.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Penny Nakanicki, and I live on Rittenhouse Street, closer to the Broad Branch end than the Utah end. So going and having any other bus line except the E6 would create a much longer commute for me, and I was going to say for us, because my husband's here too, and we both ride the bus. We're both federal government employees, as some of the other folks here, and we do contribute to the bus being here as well. The length of time that would be added to my commute would be very difficult. I am just crested, sort of, the senior age mark, but I also have a degenerative spinal injury condition, and I've had 2 back surgeries in the last 4 years, and so this is the way that I can get where I need to go without driving. My right leg is affected. I can't really drive long distances or drive often. So this is a very nice way for me to get around. One of the reasons we bought our house where we did was because of the bus route. It was one of the selling points. So it really helps the area stay vibrant. I can't tell you how important the community on that bus has been to me every morning. I'm not a morning person. So it's really nice to be able to smile and say good morning and all the folks that are here right now. One thing I worry about is the fact that the counting system doesn't work. The pass, when you put your bus pass on, it buzzes at you more often than it accepts you. And the bus driver will go, oh, it's okay, go. And I'm thinking, what? Wait, and I never thought about it in terms of that's my way of saying I use this bus route, I want to use this bus route, and I want this bus route to be here. I didn't think of it that way until very recently. I used to think, well, that's kind of nice of them, I guess, but it really isn't, because it doesn't allow the proper count. The other thing is we've spent 2 weeks, kind of grueling weeks, watching someone sit on the bus counting us as we got on and off the bus. And that was a little bit unnerving to me, and it was also disappointing because I know that person was only seeing a snapshot in time, and I also know that that person was taking account on a holiday week. And the children were out of school, some of them. They were not in school that week, so we missed all of that as well. So the count can't be accurate, and that's really very upsetting to me as well. I just want to thank you for all your efforts and being here, and I know it's tough, and I appreciate everything you're doing to help us keep our bus route, because that's what we like. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say one thing about the counts. We ask WMATA how they count people, and whether they count them manually, as you suggested, people on the bus, just counting them, or whether they use the fare cards or whatever. They said, and I don't know that this is accurate or not, but they said that there's a counter on the bus that is not dependent upon whether you pay the fare or not. It's basically, it trips whenever somebody walks by. I don't know that that's true, but and also with regard to sometimes the fare not being registered, I mean, that's losing revenue for them too. And you know, if they really are interested in keeping these buses operable, they ought to be ensuring that they get the fare every time. And they acknowledge that a lot of the fares are not collected. The other thing about the counts is the E6 has had so many detours over the last 2 or 3 years because of Oregon Avenue construction that it's been hard to tell where the E6 is coming and when it's coming. And so I think it's not reflective really of the need for the bus or the kind of ridership they could have when the bus finally settles down on one route and is reliably there every time. Yes, sir.
Thank you for giving me a turn at the mic. My name's Bevan French, and I come from a very strange world called Rollingwood. And I just want to make the point that the effect and the importance of the E6 do not stop at the district line. I've lived on Windale Lane, just off the block off Western Avenue in Montgomery County for about 50 years now. 40 of those years have been spent taking the E6 to go downtown to my job. It's convenient. All I had to do was walk 2 blocks into the district and wait for the bus. I haven't done the math, but I think you could make a very interesting calculation about how much fossil fuel has been left unburned and how much CO2 has been kept out of the atmosphere simply because I was able to take the E6 as the start of public transportation into work. I'd like to see that those benefits continue because I do believe in the importance of public transportation, and also because it will be a great deal of convenience for me in continuing my work downtown. So if you can use my testimony to show that there are people outside the district who want the E6, please do.
Well, I think you can take the survey too. If you go online, take the survey, make your comments, that'll be appreciated as well.
I'll do it if I can.
Okay.
I'm not that computer literate, but I have grandchildren.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Have the numbers been reported to you? Is ridership going up, down, staying?
They say that the ridership has been going down significantly.
But you question.
I question
the
that.
validity of that.
I question that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I just make a quick, I know.
Yeah, well, we need to move on to the next
Yeah.
thing.
One thing, on the Next Bus app, the E6 rarely shows up. It will say nearby buses, and it'll show you the M4, but it won't show you the E6.
Oh.
The reason I bring this up is for anyone who's new to the area, there's actually no outreach regarding the E6. You actually have to know that there is an E6 bus, and then you have to search for it, and then you can find the E6. But that is a shortfall in terms of the way the Next Bus and what's it called, the bus ETA
Right.
works.
We'll take one more comment.
Can I say that, okay, of course, ridership numbers have gone down, it's detoured frequently, like it's inconsistent, so it makes sense for talking to WMATA that numbers have gone down over the last 2 or 3 years, keeping detoured.
Yeah, we make that point in our resolution as well. Okay, well, thank you all very much. I mean, this is very useful to hear directly from you, and you've reinforced a lot of the things that we already knew, and you've added some things that I hadn't thought of as well. So that's really useful. We do need to adopt this resolution now. I would move that we adopt the resolution that's been drafted, and that covers, I think, nearly all of these points. Any comments or second from anybody? All those in favor? 4-0. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all very much. And I know you might want to leave at this point because the rest of the program is not going to be so interesting for you, but please do so quietly if you could. Thank you.
No, because we have to catch the bus.
That's right. Bye-bye. Thank you for coming. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the concerns about parking by car rental and car sharing companies on residential streets. This is an issue that's been coming up more and more frequently on more and more streets in our neighborhood. And I just want to give you a little bit of background on this because it is something I think that these car rental companies, car sharing companies have discovered as a loophole in the law in the district. The current law exempts non-resident vehicle owners from registering their vehicles for 60 days. And so there are some of these car rental and car sharing companies that have been using this provision to park in neighborhoods for up to 60 days without having to get registration in the district. And that has been becoming a greater and greater problem. I know some cars have been parked for weeks on a street, and they can't be ticketed. The police have said, no, there's not a violation there because of this exemption. And so they can have Maryland plates, Virginia plates, and they're not going to get ticketed. That's so long as there's not a residential parking permit requirement there. If you have an RPP requirement, then you can certainly ticket them then. But a lot of our residential streets, particularly in Barnaby Woods, Hawthorne, that area, they're not RPP. Now, Councilmember Todd he was intending to introduce this emergency legislation a couple of weeks ago, but it didn't get on the docket or something. But anyway, what he's trying to do through emergency legislation, which can be enacted more quickly, is to eliminate that exemption for ride sharing or car rental companies. And then that would be followed at a later point by some more comprehensive legislation that would address the issue more specifically. That has not been introduced yet, and I don't know when it will be, but we're still pushing Brandon Todd's office to do that sooner rather than later. So I'd like to hear from anybody who's had this experience and can inform us a little bit more about exactly what's going on. Anybody want to talk about that?
Well, I do.
Jerry?
It's, first off, there are many cars that are parked illegally from car to go or through the move. A major place where they do that is on Chevy Chase Parkway between Military and Jennifer. They do not, those are RPP zones, and they do not get ticketed. There are also cars that are parked illegally, meaning beyond the place where they're allowed to park, close to the curb, close to the corner, and they're not getting ticketed. So it's not just a matter of a loophole, they're just flat out not getting ticketed even if they don't have a permit, and even when they're parked illegally.
I think there is a provision that applies strictly to car sharing companies that permits them to park even in RPP areas, I think.
You just said that that wasn't the case.
Well, no, I'm thinking that that's a different exemption. I think it's specifically for them. I'll have to look for that. But my understanding is that they pay like a flat fee to the district that covers their...
Well, there's certain areas that are becoming breeding grounds for these cars.
Oh, yeah.
They understand that there are not a lot of people that might need to use that spot in front of their house because they have a driveway or a garage, and they just congregate. Sometimes you can walk along Chevy Chase Parkway between Military and Connecticut Avenue, and you can see 8, 10 of these cars parked along there. And some of them are in the same spot for a couple of days. So those, and it seems that free to move is the bigger culprit of these rental car.
Big car goes out of business.
Yeah, that's why I said free to move. And Zipcar has their own reserved parking spots, usually at apartment buildings or near metros.
Right. Free to move in our, I said, people also come on the street between 38 and 39. You see them all the time. And, yeah, they're there for days.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Elliot McCollum. I live on 32nd Street. And
we talked to Brandon Todd, he was here last Saturday, and he said he was gonna put this emergency legislation out. And from my standpoint, let's use a pretty graphic example. If you have a malignant tumor, you don't want to go to the doctor and say, give me a permit to keep the tumor. You want it removed.
Yeah.
We don't want these cars to have an excuse to stay. We want them removed. What he's done is, what these car manufacturers and electric scooters, bicycles, motor scooters, because they're all out there, they have turned our residential neighborhood into a commercial dump parking lot. These guys, we live 2 miles from here, right there in Hawthorne, and I passed about 4 of these just coming in between the cars, the scooters, the bikes. And when we moved up here, it was to get away from this kind of nonsense. You know, I don't want to be near a hotel. I have an Airbnb across the street from me. You know, I have cars, and they'll come by and get these cars tickets. I see, you know, you see down in the corner where the wheelchair access is, a bicycle, one of those orange bikes. And I mean, it's ridiculous. This is a residential neighborhood. Who's allowing commercial entities to come in and say, well, we're going to dump our commercial product on your neighborhood with Maryland tags, and we don't give it about you. So I'm not sure what the legislation is going to be. I even told Brandon Todd when we were here Saturday, I'll go with RPP. Now I found out that they have an exemption. But I told them when I lived on Connecticut Avenue, I happily paid the RPP, but I had to pay for it. I don't want to come up with a residential parking that I have to pay for just to keep somebody with Maryland tags off my street. You know, if I live there and I'm getting tags, I'm paying enough for tags, give me my residential parking. I mean, does the district need $10 that much? I guess that's what they are. I haven't paid for it since I left out Connecticut Avenue. It was $10 then. Oh my goodness. Well, maybe I don't want to, but I still want it free, you know, because I'm living here, I'm paying enough taxes to get a freebie, you know, every now and then, especially when we talk about the surpluses and not spending money. So I think the idea is they've got their, to me it looks like the Falk and Lion campaign contributions. I don't want to bring that up, but that's what it looks like to me. The reason these things are being done is because maybe something shady is going on. You know, you can't accuse somebody of doing something shady without any proof, but it's just too much development going in the city and then you add the 2,000 people that they want to put in this ward. It's just a lot of stuff coming in this ward, and nobody's saying, well, what about the people that live here? What do they think? You know, if we're going to put 2,000 more affordable houses, if we're going to put another, 20,000 more scooters on the street, I think that was the number. If they're going to just put these cars out here and say, just let them park in the residences. You know, what about the people that live in the district and have lived here forever and are paying taxes? Who's going to think about that? You know, so as you can tell, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. I would rather not see them all versus didn't get, because if you give them a permit, because well, we're
I think what the legislation was intending to do anyway is to prohibit them. Yeah, not to give them a permit.
Well, when we talked to Brandon, that's not. He was kind of busy because you know how the meet and greets are. Yeah. So he had people waiting. We were waiting. So I'm not so sure I got that message from him. It made me think that he's going to put in this emergency law and make them pay to do it.
No, he sent me, or his staff sent me the language of the proposed emergency legislation, and it would eliminate the exemption, eliminate the loophole that now lets them park there, so that they would not be permitted to park there. They would get ticketed if they did.
He also, when he was talking to us, he was telling us that they would have to pay. So that's what I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Councilmember Todd directly about it.
Yeah, he was saying that his legislation would make them pay just like anybody else would have to pay.
Oh, well.
And it made me think, okay, I don't want to pay to stay here.
Right,
Because then they'll say, well, we're paying just like you are.
Right.
You know, so I don't know at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you. Jerry?
Do we know how many free-to-move cars there are?
I have no clue.
You should find that out. Which is the agency that handles these?
There's an agency now for.
It's the one that does the taxi cabs also?
I think so.
Okay. No. It's not.
Well,
there's another agency.
DDOT regulates on them.
I don't think for cars.
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll tell you in a second. That would be good to find out.
Okay. Well, I didn't have anything specifically in mind for us to do on this yet, because the legislation has not been introduced and there's not anything. I will take it on myself, though, to talk to Councilmember Todd about this and see if we can address it. Yes, sir.
I have a question. It seemed that your comments about the legislation were addressing the issue of parking cars.
Yeah.
And the gentleman here,
Yeah.
was the
Scooters and
scooters and other
bikes.
kinds of stuff that you have to look twice to make sure it isn't abandoned.
But we have had several meetings to discuss scooters and bikes and how they're left willy-nilly wherever. DDI has had several revisions of the regulations related to that. That is controlled by DDI. And
that's separate from the
yeah.
pending legislation.
Yes. Separate issues supposed to be dealt with. But, you know, again, as you point out, even though there are regulations about where you're supposed to leave the bikes, people don't do that. They don't follow the regulations. Now, you're supposed to be able then to call up the bike company or the scooter company and have them remove it within a specified time period. I can't remember what that is, but they're supposed to come and remove it right away. But, you know, that's a pain for everybody to have to hassle with that. Jerry?
The department is DFHV, Department for Hire Vehicles. Taxis, Ubers, Lyfts, anything that people have to pay. Yeah, that's the department that does this. And the Revel mopeds also take up a lot of the spaces that you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
Well, you have the electric scooters, the bikes, which I think are kind of half electric, half pedal. And then you have the motorized. So, which are all on the street. The bikes and the electric scooters on the sidewalk. And usually they're at the corner, kind of blocking the ADA access.
Right. Yeah. Okay, well, I will follow up with the council member and see if we can't get a bit more information about this and see if there's something more we can do on it. Because I know it's a problem. It's persistent in a lot of neighborhoods. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussion of a resolution to fund the DC archive or district archives. Are Kim and Neil here? Yep. Good. Okay, if you could just give us a thumbnail sketch of what it is you're advocating for. I've sent Neil a copy of the testimony that we're considering to give this week. And if you could just give us a little bit of background on that.
So, hello everyone. The DC Archives, does anyone know what the DC Archives is? He does, great. This guy, perfect. That's two out of 10 people, so we're okay. That's better than usual. The DC Archives is, DC has a government, the national government, there's the National Archives downtown. The National Archives is downtown, right? And that's
federal government, and then DC, of course, is a separate government, so it should have a separate archives facility, and it kind of does. And it's in an alley in Naylor Court down in Shaw. The problem is it's really actually a converted stable. So all the documents that the government produces, every time you interact with the government, you produce some kind of record. And that goes back in that facility. In that facility, they have records going back to the 1800s that are related specifically to local history rather than to national history. So what we are asking for is for the DC government, which in particular is this operation here, archives is overseen by Brandon Todd, and it's in the office of the secretary in the DC government. So what we are asking for is for them to fulfill promises that they made about 2 years ago to make up for the neglect of the DC archives that has been ongoing since it was founded in 1985. So the three things we asked for, and unless Randy wants to go on this, is that we basically would like them to build a new facility, which they have already appropriated $80 million for, and has been sitting, becoming less valuable every year. That facility was, we were told in 2018, was going to be in UDC, and so we are asking them to build it there or some other places that didn't work out. And we also asked them to expend, in the resolution we also say that it's a matter of fiscal responsibility, and we asked them to spend some money that they had appropriated for over the years, which again is lying around, to make up for the backlog of work, of archival work. And then finally, to create an independent District of Columbia Records Agency modeled on the National Archives and Records Agency that would be overseen as an independent agency, would no longer be overseen directly by the mayor, but instead by an independent board appointed by the mayor, which is more in line with what other states do. So we both have reasons to, we are actually representing a large group of district, I mean, for the most part, historians and genealogists. So Kim is the director of the Hyrick House Museum in DuPont Circle, which used to be the Historical Society if you're in a while. And then I'm an author. I researched the Reno community that used to be in Tenleytown, or for Reno Perkins.
So I'll just say, from my point of view, it is the largest repository of documents related to the district's history that exists. There's been a lot of neglect across the board. If you guys are familiar with the Historical Society and their ups and downs, our collections generally have been at risk in the district. I personally went in to try to do research last year and was barely able to get an appointment myself. So if I, as the director of an organization that is dedicated to the history of the district, is unable to get in and do research of these records, what is an average citizen experiencing when they go there? So that's really, it is, to me, the foundation of the health of a city or a state to be able to access and do research in its historic documents.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jerry.
Piece of anecdotal information. So on my block, one of the residents passed away a few years ago, and he had probably the best collection of archival material. Maps go back over 100 years, just tons of stuff about this neighborhood. And the person that inherited his house and all his material couldn't get anybody in DC to agree to take care of this material, so they donated all of it to George Mason University, which has a large archive of DC information. So because of the lack of a DC archive, all that great material ended up in Virginia.
As we've gone around and talked to different ANCs and to different people and have raised awareness, we've heard that story multiple times. That should not be, we're losing our history.
Well, one good point I think Neil made in an email to me was that the ANC's records, which could be incredibly valuable sometime, I think we certainly keep a lot of records now. There's no place for those to be stored, or for people to have access to figure out what was going on. And this is sort of an unusual grassroots kind of government organization, and we should have a better record of it. Okay, well, thank you very much. We've drafted testimony to give before Brandon Todd's committee later this week, and it covers all of these points that you've been describing. And Neil was very helpful, Kim too, putting all that together. We really appreciate it. Any questions or comments from, first of all, the commissioners? Oh, Paul.
The Apple just built a store in the historical building downtown, and they've got extremely deep pockets, and I think they would be a good partner to approach about, if we can't keep the paper, at least scanning all these documents so that we have an online repository, then that would make it easier for people to find the information. I heard recently also that the UDC was having trouble finding something to do with their electronic archives because the technology is aging out, and if you don't put it someplace where people can get to it, they won't be able to read a floppy disk or a tape or whatever. So that's another dilemma that we have, even because technology is just moving so rapidly. Talk to Apple.
I'll say that Apple from my knowledge, has no interest in doing anything more than paying, or not even paying, like trading computers really for services. So while that's a nice idea, I don't think that they will end up digitizing stuff. But the plan, that has been, there have been like hundreds of pages of studies done for the new facility for the archives, and they do take into consideration digitizing records. So, and it is $80 million.
Yeah, right. So again, I agree with that. Apple, frankly, we got a bad deal. Kim's being nice. We actually DC got a very bad deal for the way that Apple store was put in the stores. The Historical Society is still on the top floor, but so they got a bad deal. It would be good to get something else out of that, but who knows if that's going to happen. But again, we do have $80 million already set up, and it's just about the government following through.
Okay, with that, Nancy, did you want to say something?
No, I was just happy George Mason took it.
Yeah.
I am very sorry, but I am very, very sorry to say this. But in all these years since I've lived in this city in '62, all the money that we spend to do things, there is so much waste that I am really concerned about doing something different or new, that people think we can keep pouring money into it and there's no following up of audits and improvement. We seem to experience. So I'm kind of antsy about it. Like, it's okay, this is another nice thing, and I realize it would be really good. I mean, I want maps, historic maps of Washington, D.C., which I love. I mean, through the museum, Patton Museum, but anyway. And I think it would be a great idea to have something like that for the city, because, and when I think about the Italian section, the Irish who lived here, the Germans, that people don't talk about, the Germans who built this, the Irish who came here, and the Irish who died by the thousands building Rock Creek Park. I volunteer for Rock Creek. Nobody cares about these people. And we don't know the Italians who got ripped off, who brought here, who did the marble and stuff in the Library of Congress, never got paid. This little Italy, I had grandkids who were part Italian. I mean, the historical parts of the city are incredible when you know people who grew up in, the Irish in the alleys and stuff. It's an important part.
Yep.
But I do have concerns as to another big project and how much money will flow.
Can I just say one last thing to that? Every state in America has its own state archive, and they're all state of the art, and so we are vastly behind. It's something that is just standard practice.
And cities do better care than we do for foster children.
Okay, we need to.
Sorry.
Yep. Okay, I will move that we adopt the proposed testimony. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? 4-0. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Neil, Cam, we appreciate it. Okay, Chris is going to give us an update on the community center modernization process, the design.
Okay, not many people here to hear this, but we had a meeting today with the Department of Parks and Recreation. They called us last week, they called me last week and said there was a problem with the community center, the new project, and we were a little over budget. Well, Randy and I went to this meeting, and our budget, which was passed by the city of 19 million, is nowhere near what we need to do a community center that citizens here have asked for. The design costs for DPR buildings have increased in the last 2 years over 30%. Mechanical and other non-programmed spaces that belong in the building have grown, with the technology. So when you design a new building, it needs more space for non-programmed items. The reason I'm mentioning these two things is if we were to build this building, the same building here, we had a 33,000 square foot building, it would cost $20 million using the pricing system that DPR is using now, which is more than our budget for a building that's, is nothing new. So we're basically, DPR told us that they will not do any more work on a building or a project that doesn't meet the program and is over budget. So they basically told us that the project is closed down until we find more funding. So, and this is a short version of what happened today. Upshot is Randy and I are going to go meet Jerry, so he wants to, because this is in his district. We're going to go meet with the director of DPR, talk to him about why we ended up in this position to start with, because we've been working on this design of this building with the DPR for a long time, and they should have known that this building was way over budget. They shouldn't have waited until now to tell us. And we wasted 6 months or something like that. And the way prices are going up, 6 months is a lot. So anyway, and we'll probably end up having to go to the council and get more money. But this is, for those of you who are worried about classes in this building being canceled and stuff, I think we got, everybody has a reprieve. But we need, there's a lot of work to do to get this project back on track. So I just wanted to say that. If anybody has any questions, I'd answer.
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. This contract was supposed to be awarded 1 year ago. A lot of this delay in the increase in prices is the fault of DGS and DPR. And I think it's just convenient that this price increase coincides with the delay that they've been fostering through the entire process.
Right. Nancy, quickly.
Yes, I would just say, I really, really do appreciate all the work you've done. And I find it very frustrating, too, that the city has held you up at every step of the way. And that's very disappointing, because we all knew that it would price us out. The only other thing I would add is I know both, I think Chris, you did, but I know Randy got the petition from Loretta, we got about a lot of our seniors do not want to fix seating.
Well, we're not to that stage yet.
I know, we're not there yet.
You first got to have a project.
Just in case. I know this is.
Yeah, I disagree with you there. There's a lot of other places you can have your, people want to talk to you afterwards.
I'll let the group battle that out, but.
In an auditorium with fixed seating